Hello everyone and welcome to today's show with sportsbookreview.com. I'm your host Lee Martin, here to take a first look into UFC's 251 main event, Kamaru Usman versus Gilbert Burns. And here joining me today, I have SBR's UFC expert David Manyun, as well as MMA Mania's lead host, Matt Ryan. Before we get into any UFC talk, like always, go ahead, give us a like and subscribe to our channel. That way you never miss a show. Now let's get to it. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day. But first, I'm going to start off with Dave. Real quick, we have Kamaru Usman. He's the welterweight champ. He's the current best MMA welterweight fighter. Can you give me a breakdown of him as a fighter?
Yeah, of course. Hope everyone's doing well. We've been waiting for this event now for a while. Fight Island's finally here, and the headline fight, which not many people expected, is Kamaru Usman versus Gilbert Burns. Usman, the champ. I was about to say a part of the Black Zillions, but as many MMA fans know, both guys are coming out of the same gym. Usman is now with Trevor Whitman in his corner, training with Justin Gaethje. Now, he needs it because this is going to be one of the most dangerous fights for Kamaru Usman, in my opinion. The rumor is that he's gone full-time in Colorado with Trevor Whitman, which is going to help his striking game so much because Trevor Whitman is one of the best in the business. Now, opposite ends, obviously, he used to train with Henry Hooft, and I think Henry has decided to back out altogether. So when we're talking about the gyms, I'm not quite sure if Kamaru has actually left officially, but I can't see them continuing after this. I don't know. But the 15-fight winning streak for Kamaru Usman is just no joke. All respect to Usman for taking this fight too. He's fighting a friend. They've been training together, I believe, since 2012. So it's kind of like, I'm putting my championship on the line for somebody that knows more about me in this division than anyone else. So all respect to Kamaru Usman. I think he wouldn't take this fight unless he had a bit of confidence in himself to win it. He's one of the highest level conditioned athletes in the welterweight division. This guy can wrestle all day long, and he continue his slams and his wrestling through all of the rounds. It doesn't matter if it's the first, second, third, or fourth. He should be the stronger guy, and he should be able to get complete control whilst he's in the clinch, which is where he should be strongest. Now, some of the boxing that he produces on the inside when he keeps it close against the cage is lethal. And if you've been watching him train with Gaethje, some of the clips on them two training, boy, I would not want to take any of them uppercuts to the body, that's for sure. Now, the fight versus Tyron Woodley proved how good Usman was. He took Woodley, arguably at the height of his career. This was before, the word decline was attached to Woodley, and he dominated him. More so than Gilbert Burns did, in my opinion. This might be an ugly opinion. Some people would disagree. But for me, when Woodley was entering that third round, he had taken 120 shots to the body. Burns and Usman dominated Woodley in two different ways. I just think Usman's was just the more draining and damaging game plan. And Woodley had to deal with that constant pressure as well. It was just complete exhaustion, in my opinion. And to be honest, I expect a similar tactic from Usman if Burns wants to grapple with him, leaving this fight potentially ending in a stand-up battle, where I think it's so hard to judge right now. Ultimately, Usman is the best in the division. And I love the champ. 16-1-0, 15 fights undefeated.
Yep.
Awesome stuff.
Yep. Matt, do you agree with Dave, or do you have a different look on Kamaru Usman?
No, I entirely agree with the assessment on a Kamaru Usman. If this was the Palms buffet, obviously he'd be undefeated. This would be a clean sweep for him. We saw in the past two fights, his fight against Tyron Woodley, where, in my opinion, he ended the peak of Tyron Woodley, and the person we saw after that in the fight against Gilbert Burns is a Tyron Woodley who suffered numerous injuries, suffered numerous setbacks on the road to coming back to the octagon, and that was all precipitated by Kamaru Usman's complete decimation. That is a completely correct way to look at it. For me, for Kamaru Usman, it's going to be about the 5 rounds because he's been there before. Burns has been in main events before. He's gone the distance, but these are championship rounds, and this is a championship fight. This is his second defense. His first one was a complete masterclass against Colby Covington, something that I, as the guy who calls the fights for SBN MMA, reveled in for all 5 rounds, watching Covington get smacked around. Like, well, a lot of people wanted to see for several months, and I kind of did a little dance after we went off the air, but that's just me. When you look at Kamaru Usman, he's someone who's got more experience in 5-round fights, so that's going to be the last 4 of his 5 fights have been going straight to the 5th round, whether it's a finish or getting a decision. He is emphatic. He can control. And when you look at Gilbert Burns, this is Burns' 3rd fight of the year, his 3rd weight cut amidst everything that's going on with the pandemic. So he's someone who's continuously working, continuously draining himself. You could say he's keeping himself in top condition all the time. But when you're continuously trying to make weight, and this is the 3rd time in the 3rd location, because he beat Tyron Woodley in Florida. Before that, he was fighting in Brasilia, which, his home turf, not bad, but he's training in America. And then all the way has to travel to Yas Island. It's not Fight Island. It's Yas Island. I'm not calling it Fight Island because it's not what we wanted. It's not Ricardo Montalban. It's not Mortal Kombat. We're not going to have tiki torches and drinks with little pineapples and other pieces of exotic fruit in there while we watch people give each other concussions. So I have to agree with the assessment at Usman.
All right, now let's move on over to the BJJ champ, Gilbert Burns. And Matt, I'm going to continue with you. Can you give me your take on Gilbert Burns?
Well, as I said before, this is Burns' 3rd fight of the year. His first one was against Damian Maia, who's a similar opponent to Usman. Both of them beat Maia, pardon me. Usman had to go a little bit further into the fight, had to go to a decision. Maia a little older because they fought in 2018, I believe in 2018. Maia, older now, obviously in 2020, dealing with the effects of COVID-19. He got dropped in the 1st round. Another common opponent in Tyron Woodley. He completely smacked around Tyron Woodley. But as I said before, that's post-career peak Tyron Woodley. He's on a 6-fight win streak, again, with his last loss coming in 2018 to a knockout by Dan Hooker, who up until that point was his toughest competition inside the octagon. He's obviously leveled up in his last few fights, but if you look at similar competition, Usman has been, if you look at their resumes, Usman has the stronger resume of the two. He's had 7 fights go to a decision in his career, so he's gone 5-2, which means once he goes past the 3rd round, it could be a bit of a mixed bag for him. He's had more wins, but if this is, we don't know how the judges are going to look at this. We might see the champion defend. We've seen some hinky judging in the past when we've gone into the UAE, when we've gone to Yas Island. You look at his grappling in BJJ, obviously, that gives him the edge. Usman is terrific on the ground, but as said before, he's training with Trevor Whitman now. He's going to try to keep the fight standing. If you train with Justin Gaethje, you're preparing to punch people in the throat, and that's something I think Usman's going to do come this next Saturday night on Yas Island. He's had decision wins over Gunnar Nelson, Alexei Kunchenko, and Olivier Aubin-Mercier prior to the Maia stoppage. So he's had to go the distance against lesser opponents than what he's faced on the other side of it. Now, that may be him fighting down to his competition, but that doesn't really show me a great edge, a great competitive edge when you're taking these opponents and you're basically using them for target practice for 3 rounds. You finish them, you try to get the bonus, you try to prove yourself. I don't know if Burns has that extra gear once you go later into the fight to completely go after a guy who's a defending champion and has decimated 2 of the top names in the division to gain and reclaim that title. And he's going to look for the finish, but after fighting 2 times in the past 4 months, you got to wonder, yet again, how his stamina is, how his body's dealing with all of this. You're fighting 3 times in essentially a financial quarter. You can't even get a Canelo Alvarez to fight twice in a year. And the schlep it takes for him, one of the highest paid athletes in the world, to get to that shape at that time. And we're seeing with these short notice weight cuts, these short notice fights, they're taking a lot out of people. Burns is a higher level athlete than most people we see inside the octagon. But it's this debilitating effect that it's basically you're getting limited return on that investment. And we all know that. You keep betting on the same thing over and over and over again. At one point, it's going to fall out and kick you in the head, and it might happen this coming Saturday night. But the biggest edge for Burns for me is playing the spoiler. Right now at the welterweight division, there are 2 other names being talked about. One of them is Jorge Masvidal. The other one's Conor McGregor. Conor's retired again. Masvidal is, in the midst of basically being the Che Guevara of mixed martial arts. And you know what? Solidarity, workers of the world unite. But if Burns gets this win, it completely decimates any chance of those 2 potential super fights. And sadly, Khabib Nurmagomedov's father passed away this morning, so we may see that title fight that's slated for September completely get pushed off the schedule up until December, maybe even 2021. So Dana might be trying to throw some money at Masvidal or Conor to come back to kind of fill that void in the meantime, and it may happen at welterweight.
Yep. All right. Now, Dave, do you agree with everything Matt said, or do you have a different take on Gilbert Burns?
I mean, I agree with the majority of it. The problem with this fight for me is strictly because they're friends, and as you mentioned with the odds, they're not. It's not lining up. It's not lining up correct whatsoever. Gilbert Burns is the fastest rising welterweight star of 2020. But listen, shoot me down, say whatever you will. I'm just not that impressed by his wins. So I'm sorry, but he's beat Damian Maia and Tyron Woodley, who are both at the back ends of their career. What was impressive was the knockout over Damian Maia, and Gilbert Burns' evolution in his striking has come leaps and bounds. It's ridiculous. Obviously we know he's a BJJ black belt. He's undefeated at this weight class, but I just don't feel like he's fought anyone who's on top of their game. Whilst he's been at welterweight. He's a funny guy. Who don't love Gilbert? I mean, he's getting involved on social media and stuff. Obviously, he's got a funny personality. I've been following him through different YouTube platforms and stuff. It's going to be a tough fight for him against Usman. I really think it is. It's hard to ignore how well Burns performed against Woodley the same way Usman did. But Burns' game plan was more of a just avoid that right. And as soon as he was able to avoid that right, he basically did what he wanted. The level of technical striking that Burns put on display truly proved how damn good he was, and he got the #1 ranked position, rightfully so. Rocking Woodley early, I was surprised at, and that made Woodley switch his stance. As soon as Woodley had to switch his stance, it made him hesitant. He had his fists up, and it was that swinging right game plan, the stance that he likes it from. It was gone. It disappeared. Made him hesitant, and then he became easy to back up. We were watching Woodley being backed up by Gilbert Burns. So round 1 for me in that fight, Burns had already won it. Woodley's only hope was a knockout. The game plan was already in motion. The feints were some of the best feinting that you'll see in this game today. At long range, he was striking. At distance, he was striking beautifully, pushing the fight against the cage. And when the takedown came, I thought, wow, that's it. That's a knock on confidence for Woodley that is not going to be able to come back from. It was a beautiful takedown at that. Woodley was just froze by the feints. That was it. That's what won that fight for Gilbert Burns. And if you've been studying the fights that Gilbert Burns has fought over the past however many years, he's been building up to this level. He really has. His feinting has been there for a long time. I was watching him utilize his feints against Michel Prazeres, and even though he lost that fight, you can just see how the kid has been learning and evolving at a rapid rate. This fight this weekend, I'm so excited for it. As a long-term MMA bettor, you probably should be looking at Gilbert Burns. As a MMA fan, and someone who analyzes this day in and day out, I'm slightly leaning with Kamaru Usman. I have to. I can't ignore it. But yeah, that's it. In terms of Gilbert Burns, it was what a masterclass against Woodley. I'm just not as impressed with his resume, and I think Usman is gonna be a really tough fight. It's vice versa. It's gonna be a tough fight for both guys.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, now let's go and check out their odds. So for me, via BetOnline, I checked out their odds on June 24th, and Usman was minus 190 and Burns was plus 165. Now, July 3rd, Burns is plus 200 and Usman is minus 235. So Dave, can you give me your take on those odds?
Yeah, the odds, look, when we get these early odds come in, there's absolutely no liquidity in this market. You can put maybe $50 to $100 on. Hundreds of people do that. These lines get drifted. I'm now looking at minus 235 on Usman, which gives us like an implied probability of 70%. Now, I personally capped this fight how the odds were originally released, and that was at a 60-40. Plus 150 on Gilbert Burns sounded about right for me. But as we see, the same thing happens week in, week out. The public come through. Burns is what? Plus 200. So his probability now is at 33% chance of winning this fight. So do you really think Gilbert Burns wins this only 3 times out of 10? I don't know about that. I'd definitely give him 4, and that's why I cap it at 60-40. Ridiculous value really at plus 200. But remember, it's all subjective. All that matters is your confidence in the fighter that you're trying to evaluate, and as always, people lie, numbers don't. So if you're a long-term better, for me at this number, I'd probably be slapping half a unit on Gilbert Burns. At the opening line, I probably would have been comfortable taking Kamaru Usman.
Mm-hmm. Now, Matt, again, the odds are for Burns plus 200 and Usman minus 235. Do you like that pricing or no? Do you like those? Give me your take on those odds.
As he said, it's a steal for Burns right now. If I were inclined to, I would probably put some money on it because that 60-40 variable is more in line with my thinking. I think Usman is the better fighter than Gilbert Burns. And to touch on what was said before about Burns against Maia and against Tyron Woodley, he had those game plans already because he was training with the Blackzilians. He was training with Kamaru Usman. So he already knew this is how you break down these fighters. The Maia thing was just a knockout sent from the gods. But when you look at how Woodley was broken down in that first round, sent reeling, sent rocking, and then meticulously broken down part by part, basically scrapped and sold out into a heap somewhere in Passaic, New Jersey, you can see that Usman and Burns are on similar tracks, but I think Usman is just getting their edging closer and closer and closer. And now training with Whitman, maybe learning some more things that the Blackzilians may not have been able to teach Burns. We're looking at a more effective striker in Usman. And we've seen this before. We've seen great fighters go with striking coaches, and then we're expecting this completely We're expecting Mike Tyson 2.0. We're expecting the return of a Floyd Mayweather with technical striking. But it's just going to be Kamaru Usman who knows how to throw a better lead jab, or he might be able to kind of give you a wild right that will clock you in the jaw. So we need to measure our expectations on that. It's the Ronda Rousey variable where, she was knocking people out, but it wasn't to the level of competition that, she ended up facing. So we kind of need to measure our expectations. As he said, people lie, numbers don't. I think this is in line, and I think Usman is obviously the safe bet. But weirder things have happened inside the octagon, and Burns can catch him.
Uh-huh.
Yep. Now, Dave, I'm going to go back to you with this question. Do you expect this fight to go the distance or stay within the distance? Like, how do you think this fight will end?
I like the overs.
Yeah.
We've got teammates who have done this countless times. They're so used to this. I mean, I think Usman has the better chance of a knockout, especially with Trevor Whitman behind him. and training with Gaethje. I believe Burns is the more technical striker and maybe faster, but the power's going to be with Usman, and he's just, I feel like he's going to have an answer for it. I think this is just going to go the distance. I like all the overs, 2.5, 3.5, 4.5, fight to go the distance. And remember, we are back in the big cage, which ultimately should favor Gilbert Burns avoiding the clinch and exchanges that are made within range that, Usman wants, where Usman wants the fight to be. So, the cage should favor Burns and his ability to move. So, but yeah, no KO for me. I think, the submission threat's always there. But again, Usman's ground game's underrated. It's not spoken about. He's a BJJ black belt. He's been training with Burns. He's been training with that guy. So he knows what to expect when it comes to submission offense coming from Burns. I think we might see, a five round war here. If not at least, I really do like the over 2.5. I think we'll see this fight get to the third round, as we do in a lot of championship fights, especially main event ones. It's a very important fight. Guys are not just going to come out here and just drop hands and start swinging in the pocket. So, yeah, it's an over for me in this fight, definitely.
All right, Matt, what about you? Do you see this fight going the distance, or can you see a knockout from Usman or even a submission from Burns? Give me your take on that.
The best chance for a finish is coming in the first 3 rounds, and it's going to be from Burns. I think Burns is going to try to put the pressure. As you said, he's trying to avoid that clinch, but he also knows the longer this fight goes, the better it is for Usman, because he is the champion. So the judges will be looking at that. And if he's able to maintain distance, if he's maintained throughout the distance, if he's able to go all 25 minutes, the judges may look at that a little more favorably and look at the 4th and 5th round as maybe 10-8, 10-9 for Usman instead of Burns. So you've always got to keep that in the back of your head. And Burns, he might gas out. Like, he faced Tyron Woodley. He wasn't facing consistent pressure for all 5 rounds. And when he faced Damian Maia, it was the first round. And yet again, this is his 3rd fight in 4 months. So he's going to end up adrenaline dumping at some point in this fight. And it's going to catch up to him. I think this fight goes to a decision. It is a bigger cage. Rest in peace, smaller cage. I loved you because you made my life more interesting. But the bigger cage is back until Miocic and Cormier. Thank God that's a small cage fight. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. But you look at how this fight builds out for Usman. His best option is to keep the fight standing, keep Burns thinking, and try to make him work. Try to wear him down, grind him down, try to take him and break him apart like he's done in his last 2 title fights. And for me, that's the most compelling argument for a decision.
All right. Well, Dave, back to you. Can you just refresh everyone's memory and just give us a little recap? Who would be your top pick for this fight? I'm assuming it's Usman.
Yeah, well, look, it's one of the most dangerous matchups for Usman, without a doubt, next to Colby Covington. Teammate versus teammate, going back to 2012, I believe it might have been 2013. That could play a big factor. Now, the questions, how much are the leg kicks of Burns going to damage Usman? Will Burns be pushed back, unlike in the majority of his fights? How much does each fighter know about each other? These dynamics should put these odds closer together. It's an incredibly difficult fight to predict straight up. Let's not kid ourselves. Anybody standing there with their chest out, beating it, saying they have complete confidence is just a liar. Now, if Burns wins, it will make the division more entertaining, in my opinion. I think we can see multiple champions come through the welterweight division if Burns is the guy at the top. If Usman is the champion, I think if he gets past Burns, there's not many guys that are going to be able to get past his main game plan and his main blueprint of tiring you out, wearing you down, and punching you up against the cage. Burns offers a dangerous striking battle for sure, and he offers a huge submission threat on the ground. Both of them dominated Woodley. Both of them dominated Woodley in different ways. Burns' striking is so underrated. I've underrated it myself. And look, I've faded Burns in his previous 2 fights, and it's cost me. But I think I might be heading that route again. I can't ignore the Gunnar Nelson fight. Now, Burns was just howled there by Gunnar Nelson at times, and he couldn't do nothing about it. Now, I know Gunnar Nelson is a high-level grappler, but he is not on the level of Kamaru Usman's strength. And look, I know Burns has trained with him, and he's probably been in these situations loads of times, but Usman is an imposing guy and fighter. Now, this 150, we'll go back to the odds, this 150 to 200 odds bracket, right? This, if you took a sample going back to 2013, and in this price range, we're hitting something like 56%. It's a great return on the ROI anyway, and the 150 to 200 range is one of the biggest in terms of underdogs since 2013. It's a great position to be in if you're a long-term bettor, and you don't want to think about the technical stuff too much. You can just straight play the number. But in my opinion, as a fight analyst, I can't ignore, like I mentioned, that Gunnar Nelson holding Burns up like that. Usman has the BJJ black belt in his back pocket, the strength to fend off them submission attempts. I think he can make it. Like our guy said, I think he can make it past that early threat, because that's what Burns needs. He is not surviving the cardio tank of Usman. Not a chance. I think Usman can clinch this up, hold Burns there, beat him up. He might even take him down and just have some fun on the floor and not be scared of the submissions at all. I think he can just control this completely and take a unanimous decision.
All right. How about you, Matt? Who would be your pick for this fight?
It's going Usman unanimous decision for all the reasons I've listed throughout this conversation. You go in the 5 rounds, you look at all of the different things that build up to this fight, and you look at the fact that Burns has faced lesser competition. If you look at, and we keep going back to it, the Colby Covington fight. Everybody said Usman was going to get pieced up by Covington, that Covington was going to win the title, and there was a lot of hype around Colby Covington. And it seems to be at 170 pounds, people just don't like who holds the title. Tyron Woodley and Kamaru Usman lately, they've both been waylaid during their title reigns for a variety of reasons. Colby Covington was the Peter McNeely of mixed martial arts. He was the guy who came in, had a great gimmick. The gimmick burned out quickly because he learned that 1997 WWE promos don't really have that long of a shelf life in 2020. Colby, if you need a better promo writer, you follow me on Twitter. I got you, fam. Trust me, I can make you less of a jingoist. But back to the prediction. Usman has the championship round experience. He has the pay-per-view main event experience. We can't look past that. This is a big platform. This is Fight Island. And it's a show with 3 title fights. There's a lot riding on this card for the UFC, for the 170-pound division, and for Dana White. Like, he's made the investment in putting this fight on last. And you look at the other fights on this card, you got Holloway Volkanovski. That, to me, is the better fight in the main event. There's more of a story there. But Burns and Usman, it's the sexier division because Connor's talked about going there. And you look at the idea of Masvidal being a potential challenger, or Colby Covington rising from the death, and Candace Owens leading him to the ring with the MAGA training squad, or whatever Colby Covington's doing right now. I don't even know, and I don't even care. But Kamaru Usman is the dominating force in that division. He is the gatekeeper, as said before. More people can potentially go through Burns. If it's Burns versus Jorge Masvidal, I'm taking Masvidal 9 times out of 10. But if it's Usman Masvidal, So I am taking Kamaru Usman. I'm taking it by unanimous decision because the deeper this fight goes, the more you see a championship round performance from the champion, the more inclined the judges are to give it to the title holder.
All right, well, we got Usman on both sides. Everyone, be sure to tune in next Wednesday where we're going to break down the entire main card for UFC 251 and also check out the odds closer to fight night. Thank you guys so much for your time. If you aren't following the guys on Twitter, definitely give them a follow. You can follow Dave at @dmanion_, and you can follow Matt at @mryan consulting. And also, if you're not following SBR on Twitter and Instagram, definitely give us a follow at SBR Sports Picks. Again, thank you guys so much for your time. Until next time.